So pick yourself up, dust yourself off, start all over again. Pick yourself up, dust yourself off, start all over again. Thank you.
Thank you, Billy. That's a good saying, isn't it? Pick yourself up, dust yourself off, and start all over again. Wow, that's encouraging. I want to update it a little bit. Don't just think about the men who've overcome, because I can assure you, women have overcome in many ways a lot more than men even. So I want to honor that as well. So, well, we've been talking about questions. Anybody got questions? I think we all have questions, and I think it's probably one of the most significant and important things that we can do in life is to really look at and think about the questions that we're asking in life. The questions we're asking ourselves, the questions we're asking of life, and the questions we're asking each other even, for that matter, in many ways. And last week we talked about certain questions that were there to help us to grow spiritually. And there's one of them that I didn't cover that I wanted to throw out real quick, and that is, here's a question that I think can really help us to grow spiritually, and that is, how much room am I willing to give God to work things out? How much room am I willing to give God to work things out? Sometimes we have a tendency to pray for certain things, and then things kind of get a little better, and then we kind of go, okay, God, I got it from here, right? And so sometimes it's valuable for us to really open ourselves and ask the question, how willing am I to let things, to the Spirit to work things out in my life? Came across a story. There was a woman at work when she received a phone call from her daughter and found out her daughter was very sick with a fever. So she went from work and she stopped at the pharmacy on the way and got some medicine. But then when she came out to the car from the pharmacy, she realized that she had locked her keys in the car. Nobody's ever done that, I'm sure, but locked her keys in the car and didn't know what to do. Didn't know what she was going to do, so she called a friend, and the friend says, well, see if you can find a coat hanger and see if you can open it with a coat hanger. So she looked around and found a coat hanger, but she didn't have a clue what to do with this coat hanger. She just didn't know how to open a car door with a coat hanger. And she prayed, and she said, boy, I need some help. What am I going to do? God, send me some help. About that time, this big old biker drives up on this Harley motorcycle, and he's on his leathers, and he's really rugged looking. He's really, a rough-looking guy, and he parks up next to her and sees what she's doing and says, well, can I give you a hand? And she said, well, yeah, I would appreciate it if you could help me out. And so he goes over there and takes the coat hanger and goes, choop, opens it, the door's open. She says, oh, it gives him a big hug. Thank you, God. I just answered my prayer, and you even sent me a professional. Well, sometimes we need to be open to what Spirit has in store for us, right? And sometimes we need to be open to how Spirit can work things out. It doesn't always work out the way we think it's going to sometimes, but we need to be open to how we can allow Spirit to move in our lives. There was a story about a man, and this week we're going to talk about asking questions. What are the questions we can ask to know ourselves better? To know ourselves better. That's the lesson for this week, and the questions are really, I think, some really good questions. And I came across this story about a man who was away on a business trip, and he decided before he came back, he wanted to buy a little something for his wife, and he wanted to buy a gift. And so he goes into a department store and goes to the perfume counter and says, well, how about some perfume? That'd be a good thing. And so the lady brought out this bottle of perfume, and it was $50, and he says, well, that's a bit much. So she turned it, and she came back with a smaller bottle, and he said, well, how much is that one? She said, well, that one's $30. He says, well, that's still a little bit much. So a little bit later, she came back with a bottle that was $15, and he says, what I mean is, I really like something that's really cheap, and so she brought back a mirror. I thought that was pretty cute. So our questions this week are to look at ourselves, to ask ourselves the questions that will help us to know who we are a little better, to really see ourselves a little more clearly, perhaps. There's a tremendous power in asking the right questions and having those questions come to us in times when we need them at times. And so there's a value in looking at some of the questions that can be valuable for us and really getting a clearer image of our true nature, of who and what we are and what we're about. And so one of the first questions, of course, is Windy Craig-Purcell, the author of this book, Ask Yourself This. One question she asked is this, and I'm going to say it two different ways. One way I'm going to say it, let me say it this way. Who do you think you are? And then I'm going to ask it, who do you think you are? And there's a difference there, isn't there? There's a difference in understanding of what that question really is about. And when you hear the first one, who do you think you are, who comes to mind? Who's asking the question and how it's being asked. And so sometimes we ask ourselves that question in that way, don't we? But this is a question really to ask yourself in truth, who do you think you are? And we know that there's a power in our understanding and our awareness of our own self and our nature. So asking that question a couple of different ways can actually bring up some things for us to look at. And asking yourself personally, who do I think I am? So it's pointing to a spiritual truth about us. In many ways, when we really ask the question, who do I think I am, there's another way of working with this. And I had a wonderful opportunity some years ago to go and study at the Association for Happiness for All Mankind. This is in North Carolina. Any of you familiar with the AHAM work? AHAM teaches a form of meditation called self-inquiry. And it's from the teachings of, wow, I've gone blank. Isn't that interesting? I'll have to come back to that. Anyway, it's a wonderful meditation technique that really just simply has you ask the question, who am I? Who am I? And then you listen, not to try and figure it out, but to simply listen for the awareness that comes when you ask that question, who am I? And oftentimes what you'll hear inside yourself is, well, I'm me, of course. And, well, who is me? Who am I? And as you listen deeply, you'll begin to feel an experience of I. And you'll feel that I am inside of you. And then you take a moment to immerse yourself in that experience of I am. And the more you immerse yourself in that experience of I am, it really actually then expands your awareness. It expands your consciousness of beingness, of the essence of who you are. It's a wonderful practice, and we'll do some work with that at different times, and we'll do some work with getting a deeper sense of that. So who do you think you are? I think who we think we are has a very powerful effect, not only in helping us to awaken ourselves spiritually, but it has a very powerful effect in how we experience ourselves in the world. It's valuable to recognize and to look at how we see ourselves. And oftentimes we don't really pay a lot of attention with how we actually see ourselves. We're busy thinking about how everybody else sees us. And that can be a trap, because if we think that we're supposed to be how everybody else sees us, well, you know, that idea of assuming, right? You know what that does. So I came across this awareness. There was a guy, when he was a little boy, the other children called him Sparky. And he was named after a comic strip horse named Sparkplug. And Sparky never shook that nickname. He had that nickname pretty much his whole life, I understand. So school was really impossible for Sparky. He failed every subject in the 8th grade. Every subject. He flunked physics in high school, receiving a flat 0. He distinguished himself as the worst physics student in the school. He distinguished himself by flunking algebra twice and flunked Latin. He didn't do much better in sports, although he managed to make the golf team. He promptly lost one of the most important matches of the year in the golf game. And there was a consolation match, and he lost that one also. And though Sparky was awkward socially, he was not actually disliked by other youngsters, but no one really cared much about him. He was astonished if a classmate even said hello to him. Sparky never once asked out a girl for a date, so he didn't know how he would do at dating. His classmates thought he was a loser, and he just kind of rolled with it. No one really, really appreciated who he was too much, and so, you know what he did? He wrote an autobiography of himself, and he wrote that autobiography as a cartoon. It's one you'll probably recognize. It's called Charlie Brown, and Sparky is Charles Schulz, the developer of Charlie Brown. Actually, probably one of the most beloved cartoon characters in history, actually. He took something that seemed to be not necessarily a positive thing about himself, and he presented that in a way that it really was a blessing, not only for himself, but also to other children and other people who've oftentimes seen themselves as losers in life. And he was able to shine a light on the awareness that all of us on some level have that possibility within us, but at the same time, we have the possibility of shining something even greater and making a difference for others, even in our weaknesses, quote weaknesses. It really has more to do with just simply being authentic, doesn't it? It's just being who we truly are. It's a true story. Many of us do things to ourselves this way as well. Sometimes I think it's important for us to recognize that we stand in our own way most of all, don't we? We stand in our own way most of all. Ashley Brilliant has these wonderful sayings called pot shots. I love these pot shots. One of them, he says, the more I learn about myself, the more I become a different self. So one question that we can ask ourselves, the second question is, what am I saying yes to in my life? What am I saying yes to in my life? This is a really valuable question. What are you saying yes to? Michael Beckwith calls it the holy yes of the soul. That's a great way of putting it, isn't it? And so when you think about what you are saying yes to, when something comes into your experience and something comes into your life, you actually have to welcome it on some level. There is a quality of invitation that you're giving to it. That's a great way of putting it, isn't it? We don't like that sometimes because we don't like some of the things that we're inviting into our lives. And so we need to really be conscious of what it is that we're truly saying yes to. Think about it in terms of welcoming somebody into your home. Are you extending yourself to have them come into that space, or is there an openness or an attraction to having people come into your home that you want to have come into your home? I think this is true also in terms of just our life experiences. There's a part of us that is in some conscious or unconscious way making an invitation. And so I always kind of put it this way, we're always in the process, we're creative beings. So we're always in the process of either consciously or unconsciously, we're either creating, promoting, or allowing. And so we want to look at what is it that's going on that we are participating in some way. And are we willing to participate in a different way? Are we willing to make the shifts that allow us to invite something different, to invite something new, to invite something more uplifting and more healthy and more blessing and more prospering in our lives? So here's another question that I think can really help us to know ourselves. Another question I think is really valuable, the third question, and this one I think is very significant. The question really is, what am I looking for? Take some time to reflect on that. What am I looking for? There are people in this world who have perfected the art of looking for problems. And when they are our mechanics working on our car, that's what we want, right? When they are doctors, we want them to be able to find out what the problem is, don't we? But it's important for us to recognize that there's only certain situations where we really want to spend our time and energy looking for problems. Because the reality is, because we are creative beings, we want to not just look for the problems, we want to look for those things that will move us past the problems and beyond that. You know, whatever we tend to focus our awareness on is what we tend to draw more into our experiences in life. And so there's a point where we want to stop looking for problems and simply be open to what can be the best possible solutions in the circumstance. I came across, there's an awareness about, you know, if you, a vulture flies out over a desert, and as a vulture flies out over the desert, it's looking for something. And it's looking for dead meat. And it finds it. That's what it finds. But a hummingbird can fly out over a desert and it's looking for flowers. And that's what the hummingbird finds. Jesus said, "Seek and ye shall find. Ask and it shall be given. Knock and the door shall be opened." There's a powerful spiritual understanding that what we seek, we find. I really kind of came into an understanding and awareness about this verse, and what I think Jesus is really trying to tell us is that whatever we are seeking, that's what we're going to find. Whatever door we knock on is the one that's going to open. Whatever we're really asking for, when I say really asking for, whether it be on a conscious or unconscious level, that's the one that's going to be granted. So it's important for us to understand that whatever we're focusing our awareness and our attention on is what's going to be brought more fully into our experiences in life. And so when you go through different experiences, the question really, a really good question to ask yourself, what am I really looking for? Am I looking for the best, the greatest possible outcome? I love some years ago they came out, and they're still out there, these worst case scenario books. Anybody know what I'm talking about? You've seen the worst case scenario books? How about a best possible solution book? I would rather have that personally. Let's think about what would be the best possible solution to this circumstance and put our energy and focus in moving in that direction and asking the question, well, what would be the best possible solution for this? And put your time and energy in focusing on that, and you'll find that you'll begin to draw more of that into your experiences. Another question that Windy puts out here that I think is really valuable, and the question, the way she puts it is, do I live by one set of rules? Do I live by one set of rules? And what she's really saying is, another way of asking this is, am I congruent? Or where in my life am I out of congruence? Congruence really just means basically in alignment. Am I really in alignment with my authentic nature, with who I truly am? Am I really being true to myself and to who I am? I learned a lot about this, in all honesty, from my own father. My father was a very good man, and I admired and respected my father a lot. And he had, I think, a lot of congruence about him. My father was a multi-million-dollar salesman. Didn't have a multi-million dollars, but he sold millions of dollars worth of different things in his life. And He won several $1 million sales contests and awards and things like that. And so I went to work for my father one year in the business, and I asked him, what is the secret to successful selling? And he said something that stuck with me, and it's been a very powerful lesson. He says, never try to sell something to someone that you would not buy yourself. Let me say that again, because this is a very valuable gift for me, and I think for you as well. Never try to sell something to someone that you would not buy yourself. I didn't realize at the time he was not just talking about sales. He was really talking about how you show up in life. He was talking about the golden rule on a deep level. He was talking about believing in yourself and selling your true self to the world. Shakespeare said, this above all else, to thine own self be true. So I also came across this wonderful Emerson quote that I love, and it says, who you are speaks so loudly, I can't hear what you're saying. I think that's true for all of us. Who we are really does speak so loudly that people don't really hear so much our words as they hear who we truly are. So think about that question. Another way of asking that, an important question also, and an important aspect to it, and that is being willing to ask the question, where do I distort the truth? Where do I distort the truth? Where do I distort what I am presenting or asking or being? Where do I justify or rationalize my behavior? Where am I not in congruence with myself, with who I think and say that I am? And those are valuable questions to ask also. It's valuable to look at. Sometimes we distort the truth in larger, more serious ways, but sometimes in little ways. Sometimes we don't say how we really feel about something. Guilty? Yeah. Sometimes we're not really speaking up for what's really true in us. And it's valuable to really look at that and pay attention and to notice, what is it that I'm trying to cover up, or what am I hiding within myself that I'm not willing to accept? And those can be valuable gifts. Now, we don't want to spend too much time just focusing on what we don't like about ourselves, but at the same time, we don't want to hide from them either, because it doesn't really allow us to experience the wholeness of our nature. Let me read something from the book. Actually, I've got it written down here. Sometimes we distort the truth in larger, more serious ways, and instead of punishing ourselves for the time we are less than honest, we can use them to learn more about ourselves. We can use them to learn more about ourselves. So, you can look at the opportunities where when you find yourself in that place where you're not fully in alignment or not being able to say or not feeling comfortable saying what's true for you. And really ask yourself the question, is there a way that I can express this that would really be in alignment with who I really feel I am here to be and do? Well, I want to, these questions I think are ones that we can take some time to reflect on and meditate through the week. I know I have been really reflecting on them, and they've been stretching me in many ways. And I think that's really a value of these questions, is to use them as a way of stretching who we think we are, stretching our spiritual nature. Here's another question, and I probably will close with this one. Actually, I'm going to close with a quote from St. Augustine, but I want to ask this question. What in me is allowing this to continue? Let me say that again, because I think that can be a really valuable gift for us. What in me is allowing this to continue? Now, you fill in the blank of the this. You know what this I'm talking about, don't you? It's not my this. It's you've got a this going on. We've all got some this going on in life. And so it's valuable to ask ourselves, what is it within me is contributing to allowing whatever this is, that's something that just seems to repeat itself or keeps coming back or hasn't gone away, or you know the ones we're talking about, right? Just simply ask the question, what is it in me that's allowing this experience to go on, to continue in my life? And then listen for what that might be. Listen for it and be open to it. Be open to, not for the purpose of criticizing or judging ourselves, but for the purpose of perhaps making a different choice. Looking at something differently, seeing from a different perspective. Came across this wonderful Ziggy cartoon. Before I get into that, let me say, it's really important, and Wendy points this out, it's really important for us to ask these questions of ourselves and stop asking them for others. You follow what I'm saying? Too easy to get caught up in trying to ask these questions for someone else. We've all experienced someone who has got real clear what it is in us that's allowing something to continue. And they're more than willing to share it, aren't they? Don't do that. Don't do that. That's not for us to do. That's not our work. In fact, that's trying to escape our work, isn't it? And so what I would really encourage you to do is really use this as a way to grow you and let go of that within you. In fact, you might ask the question, what is it within me that needs me to try and fix everybody? That's another good question to ask. What am I trying to avoid in me that makes me think that I'm supposed to fix everybody else? So I came across this comic strip, Ziggy comic strip, Tom Wilson, great cartoonist. He says, I probably shouldn't be so quick to criticize myself. After all, it wouldn't be fair to everyone else who's waiting in line to do it for me. So don't do that to somebody else. Don't do that to somebody else. And I want to close with this quote from St. Augustine. Oops, I lost my quote. Where'd you go? Here we go. St. Augustine said, people travel to wonder at the height of mountains, at the huge waves of the sea, at the long courses of the rivers, at the vast compass of the ocean, at the circular motion of the stars, and yet they pass by themselves without wondering. You are wondrously and marvelously made. This is a statement from the New Testament, and it really is a statement that you are wondrously made, and so don't pass up the mystery and the magnificence and the beauty of opening your heart and your mind and your eyes to the magnificence that you were created in and of. And one of the ways we can do that, one of the ways we can hold up that mirror to ourselves, is to ask these questions. To see in the mirror is, he says, don't pass by yourself without open-eyed curiosity and be willing to see what's in the mirror and see that the mirror is, in fact, a blessing God is expressing through you. So that's our work for this week. Those are the questions I think we can have a good time reflecting on and listening to. And I encourage you to spend some time not only reflecting on them, but when you're actually going through different experiences in life, ask yourself, what question do I need to be asking in this experience to know myself better? So have fun with that this week. Let's move into our meditation time. Breathe into the heart space and Let your heart be open to living in the questions and be open to allowing the Spirit to reveal even more of the truth of who and what we are, of our unique, magnificent nature, and all of those aspects of our thoughts, our feelings, our emotions, our ways of looking at life, our ways of looking at ourselves that might block us from truly feeling and knowing that connection we have with Spirit, with our wholeness, with the divine. And just simply asking a question, am I willing to release the blocks? Am I willing to see myself through the eyes of Spirit? Am I willing to see through the grace of love and compassion and caring? I invite you to hold yourself in that light, because that is the light that Spirit holds for you. The love that God has and is. You truly are the light of the world. Let that light shine. Breathe into the heart space. Let yourself be open to the questions being there for you to move you into even more of your authentic nature. And so it is. Take a nice deep breath. And take one more nice deep breath, and when you're ready, gently open your eyes. Be present here and now. And so it is. Amen.